Welcome to the November 9th, 2010 meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency. Can we have a roll call, please?
Agency members: Draymond.
Here.
Jarian.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Chair Friedman.
Here. Can we hear your report?
Agenda for the November 9, 2010 regular meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency was posted on Thursday, November 4, 2010 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. What's next?
Next is oral communications, as there are no minutes for approval for this meeting.
Thank you. I have
Plus one card submitted. Same rules will apply with a 5-minute timeline and no debate or discussion.
Thank you. I have one card. Mike Mohill.
Mike Mohill, long-term resident of Glendale. Thank you, Chairman Friedman. I'd like to talk about the closed session you had this afternoon in regards to the Target Corporation property along San Fernando Road that I read in the city business. I don't know what went on that discussion City Council had today. I'd just like to thank you very much for the discussion that perhaps we can buy that land and negotiate with Target that they will make some sweet deal for the city of Glendale. I brought with me some information that I cut out of the newspaper here some time ago. It says football in the city of Tacoma. Youth program teaches kids that they can still be tough, but keep it on the field. When I see this, I think of the kids in South Glendale who have no soccer fields, no swimming pool up until now. But they look across the street and they see the sports complex that they don't have in their backyard. I have here 1,300 signatures of kids and their families who signed my petition asking Target Corporation to please donate their land, which I understand is worth about $20 million. $20 million, it's a lot of money. Will they do it? I don't know. Should they? I don't know. But I'm trusting the City Council that you can find the money to purchase this land. We may not be able to put up the soccer field as soon as we buy the land. At least, as Mr. Draymond would say, we can bank it for another day so we can go ahead and so that, not in my lifetime, but in the kids. When I talk to the kids about the soccer fields and the soccer complexes, I said, you know what? You know the soccer complex up there in the Verdugo Woodlands you all go to? They said, yeah. He says, you know what? That wasn't there when I was a kid. But I believe somebody like about 15 years ago, maybe even 20, the previous council had the foresight and say, you know what? Let's buy that land and make it a sports complex. And today, thousands of kids use that sports complex. Not only Glendale residents, but the kids from LA, Burbank, Pasadena. It's a wonderful idea to have soccer fields, as this is the #1 sport in South Glendale. It's not soccer. Excuse me, it's not American football. It's not basketball. It's not even golf. But soccer. From what I gather, there's enough room there, if we buy the land or negotiate with Mr. Target Corporation, that we could possibly have 3 soccer fields there. Wouldn't that be great? We'd have a feather in our cap, and we can be proud that this city council did something right. Thought about more than just the city unions, but thought about the residents and the children. They don't need another mini park for the grandparents. Let's keep the kids out of jail. By having a park, a soccer field, You will make lots of kids happy. I can just vision, city just approved the swimming pool. So hopefully this time next year, they'll be swimming in it. Thousands of kids. And perhaps in 5 years, they can say, hey, meet you at the Target soccer fields. Maybe Mr. Caruso's representative here, Rick from Target, maybe the Americana will join the city in purchasing or developing that land for a soccer field. I know the people who probably live in South Glendale won't be going to Americana, but you know what? They'll think highly of Mr. Caruso. Thank you all for your time and consideration.
Thank you. What's next?
Madam Chair, may I request the petition so we can make it part of the record?
Maybe staff can
Perhaps at a
ask
later
Mr.
time.
Mohill for that. Okay. What's next, please?
No. Member of the agency requested a copy of the petitions that you've collected.
Okay. Okay, let me, this one's been marked up. Can I?
Okay, when you're ready, please.
Yeah, I'll give you, sure. Sure, absolutely.
Madam Chair, at 6A, under the business agenda, is public hearing, Director of Community Redevelopment and Housing regarding 19-space parking exception for Merge Fitness to be located at 1517 Railroad Street. At 6A1 is a motion approving parking exception based on findings and with conditions.
Good afternoon. Alan Castillo with the Redevelopment Agency. Good afternoon, Agency Chair Friedman and members of the agency. Merge Fitness LLC is currently negotiating a lease with the property owner of 1517 Railroad Street to occupy a warehouse space as an athletic facility specializing in gymnastics and weightlifting. The facility will be open from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. in the morning and 5 to 9 p.m. during the evenings.
Hey, one moment. I need to officially open the public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it was my fault. Sorry to interrupt you. Okay, you can continue.
Okay. Just continue.
Just continue.
The facility will be open from 6:30 to 7:30 in the mornings and 5 to 9 p.m. during the evenings with group classes of 6 to 8 clients. Additionally, depending on demand, the owner will hold private one-on-one training sessions from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Employees during daily operations include the owner, office manager, and training assistants. Otherwise, the facility will be closed during business hours. The previous use of the building was office and distribution of audio-visual equipment. The code required 4 parking spaces are provided on-site and are available to the new use. The warehouse space totals approximately 2,000 square feet and includes 4 on-site dedicated parking spaces, 1 handicapped, and 3 code-compliant spaces. Based on the current parking demand of the gymnasium, the total required for this use is 23 spaces, thus a 19-space parking exception is being requested. Staff has surveyed the area and finds that based on the following necessary findings, the parking exception could be met. The proposed hours of operation during the facility's peak hours are limited to those hours outside the daily peak times of the adjacent businesses, and street parking is available during the facility's peak times. The applicant is actually here to answer any questions. There were, I think, 3 speaker cards, 2 of them opposed, which is the neighbor and the person across the street, and then the other one actually was for the project. They're not here.
Could you just elaborate? There was a bit in our staff report about the hours of operation, which
Yes.
seemed unique. It's not your regular 9-to-5 type business.
No, it's yes.
Now, so first I would ask you to elaborate on that, and secondly, my question, and maybe it's more of a question for the speakers who are going to come up, is whether they were aware that this is not really a 9-to-5 type business.
Yes. Well, the hours of operation, and the applicant is here, you can correct me if I'm wrong, are between the hours of 6 a.m. to 7:30, which is the peak. That's when they'll have classes of 6 to 8 people. During 8 to 4, he's going to hold one-on-one meetings, and the property itself has 4 parking spaces. And then during off-peak, I mean during their other peak times, it's 5 to 9 p.m. And so neighbors or warehouses along the area are usually off at that time.
So when you say he's having the one-on-one, is that in addition to the classes, or is that in...
No, it's just one-on-one. And Bryce, you want to come up?
Please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Bryce Greenstein. And yes, to answer your question, that would be in addition to the classes. So during the day, say 11 a.m., there would be a one-on-one session.
In addition to the classes?
Yes.
So how many people are normally in the gym during those hours?
During the hours of the one-on-one,
Yeah, right.
it would be myself and one other person.
So you don't mean in addition, you mean instead of?
Oh, instead of, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for staff before we go to the public?
I have some questions for the, and your morning sessions as well as your evening sessions, how many do you anticipate are going to be there at one time, from gymnasts, weightlifters, et cetera?
Approximately 6 to 8 per hour. So one session is an hour, and there would be approximately 6 to 8 clients during that time.
Okay, so
Thank
I'm going
you.
to go to the public if there's no other questions from the agency. Brent Edwards? Brent Edwards? Okay.
Madam Chair, members of the agency, unfortunately, I think all three speakers have already left, and they state their case on the back of the cards, I believe.
I see.
And to answer your question earlier, at least one of the, I believe the speaker's name is Cohen. Mr. Cohen was not aware of the hours of operation. He had not seen the staff report. We just learned about his concern right before the meeting. We shared the staff report with him upon his departure.
Okay.
Thank you.
So let me just ask if there's anybody here from the public who wants to speak on this matter? Okay, I see no one, so I will turn to my colleagues for comments or questions. Mr. Najarian.
I think the appropriate focus that you have been making is on the hours of operation. Some of our biggest headaches in the downtown area and other areas of Glendale have been the health clubs, your typical health clubs. I understand that this is not a typical health club. It's a much smaller scale. I'm concerned that this not morph into a larger full-service health club where we have such intense parking demands. That is my only concern. As presented, I think this is appropriate. I think there's adequate parking capacity and minimal impact on the surrounding businesses and residences. But let's just be careful. I mean, 24-hour fitness alone is causes our heads to spin, and we just wonder why that got out of control the way that it did. So as presented, I have no problem with affording the business, this new business, the parking exception, and welcome to Glendale. But please, you have to understand that is one of our concerns. We've just been, that one gym has just changed the way we've thought of downtown and the way we've picked businesses and set parking rates. And I could say that the installation of the parking meters along Brand Boulevard are in large part due to the heavy use that the other full-service type of athletic facility has created. So, thank you.
I think I have a point from one of our attorneys.
Yes, Madam Chair, Member Najarian, I'll draw your attention to the condition, which is specific to Merge Fitness as described in this report. So, and that's including these hours of operation. So, should there be a morphing of this project, such as you've described and as one of your concerns, it would be a basis upon which a request for a revocation of this parking exception could be brought back before the agency for consideration. Just so that you're aware of that.
Agency Member Quintero?
Yeah, I just wanted to note that one of the speakers that left on the back of his comments were that the parking is full by 7 a.m. every day, which when you think about it, he's manufacturing, he's with a Solar Studios, but these manufacturing areas do fill up early in the morning. It's not normally a 9 to 5. It's an earlier group of workers.
Mr. Weaver?
Well, since we put the hours in, then the logical question is, who's going to make sure those hours are followed? I presume that we will fall back on complaint-driven, right?
Members of the agency, that is correct. The city currently doesn't have a monitoring system other than fielding complaints to neighborhood services and following up Should they violate, then this potentially could be revoked.
They'll say they don't violate, and there's just no parking there for the people that already work there. And they start calling and saying, hey, we can't park there now because other people are parking at the hours we get to work. If they get there at 7, they're open to 7:30, and we get complaints, then what do we do?
Currently, there is no process in the city system unless I'm not aware. I'm looking at the attorneys. However, given the fact that our staff is out in the area, both the parking, given the proximity to the transit center, and knowing the project area, we're hoping that we become more aware of these issues.
You misunderstood. I said if workers that are parking there on the streets now can't find spaces at the time they come to work because of this new establishment, they call the city. Is that grounds for considering revocation?
The matter would be, well, I guess I would have to look at the attorney because that's not part of the condition. However, the issue could be revisited and be brought back to the agency for consideration.
Right, that'd be the complaint driven.
Would not be grounds in and of itself for revocation. We could certainly look at potentially a public nuisance issue, certainly some gentle persuasion by staff, some meetings with the owners of the establishment on some of the impacts, but generally speaking, that alone would not be a basis for revocation.
So if we approve this, we're approving it with the knowledge that it may create a parking problem down there at certain hours of the day, that we really can't do anything about it.
As it's written now, correct. However, you could discuss a further condition, such as if upon a study of after the establishment's been operational for a period of time, if after study it appears that there are significant parking impacts that cannot be mitigated, you can certainly look at that as a condition for revocation. But right now, that's not one of the conditions as proposed.
And the owner is making an investment in the improvements. That would be even more hurtful.
Okay. Mr. Draymond, do you have any comments? I'll just make a quick comment, which is if the existing businesses that are there are claiming they don't have enough parking, then clearly they're underparked on their own sites and they're parking on the street. So in my mind, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And if the existing businesses believe that they have some sort of right to street parking and other businesses don't, well, I reject that. If they're already parking on the street, I don't see why this business shouldn't also be able to park on the street. Just because they were there first doesn't mean that every other building that's there doesn't get the same privilege that they do. The other assumption that we're all making is that everybody who uses this particular business will be driving there. If it's a gym like the one that I go to, a lot of people live very close. That's why they pick that gym, because it's convenient. And we do have a lot of housing right now within walking distance of this site. We have 4 new affordable housing projects. We have a lot of other housing around there that's, just homes that people own. And I don't know of another gym in that area. So it's quite possible that this customer base will be living close enough to be able to walk to this business. So I feel let's when every time a new business opens, it's a happy event in Glendale, and I'm not going. And we don't know whether this is going to cause a problem or not. But I think that we're taking we're putting a lot of conditions on them. We've looked at their hours, so I feel very comfortable about them opening, and I think that it's great, and I wish them well. Quintero.
Well, I support the project. Mr. Weaver and I have been looking for some Olympic weightlifting training. Isn't that right, Mr. Weaver?
Of course.
So we're going to be entering the senior Olympic weightlifting. So I do support it, absolutely. And it is a specialty. It's a niche, gymnast and the Olympic-type weightlifting. However, I do want to have some kind of provisions in place, so I don't know what we can do time-wise or how we can... is this open-ended that they would have the right to stay there forever regardless of the impact? Or can we set a 1-year...
You can set a time frame to it. At this point in time, it's so long as Merge Fitness LLC is located at that location.
Yeah, I'd like to have some sort of, maybe a 1-year period, and at the end of the 1 year, I'm sure they're going to be good neighbors. I don't think that, but you never know, so. Mr. Weaver?
Oh. No, I'm going to support it, don't get me wrong. But I absolutely philosophically oppose bringing businesses in, taking up street parking when the existing businesses probably don't have enough room ready. That is bad engineering. I will never support trying to overcrowd the streets. This council's already sat and done that in more than one case. Personally, I do not like it. Parking's at a premium. You don't bring in new businesses to try to compete with the spaces that are left. That's just not right. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any kind of a motion? Oh, Mr. Draymond.
Yeah. Well, I thought I didn't have comments, Chair Friedman, but I guess I do because of the direction the conversation has gone. No, I do support this project. I support this particular item. I agree with you. This is a time to find a way to bring business, small business, large business. This happens to be a smaller business. It's a good thing for the city, and it's a good thing for this area. I don't think I understand what agency member Quintero is saying about, the concern about how long this would go or indefinitely. However, we have a means already to deal with that, and that is, if there are complaints and there are problems, we have the right to look at revocation.
Correct.
So I don't think we need something new, an extra item, however well-intentioned, to place on top of a new business to sort of create an extra burden or something hanging over their head that has to come back to be reevaluated again. All of these proceedings that we have, including this one, take time away from a business and so on. So I'm going to support it, and I'm inclined to say let's see what happens. The fact is, and I understand the sensitivity you have, Mr. Weaver, about this, but we are in a very unique economy, and I think that the issue of parking is changing in the city in general. I think we have to face facts on that. It's going to come a time when we can no longer count noses and count square footage and simply say, okay, Mr. Business, you have something we really need, want, public desires in Glendale, but, based on the number of square feet, you don't have the equivalent number of parking spaces, so too bad. We have to pass on that. That is, I have to be very careful with because he's close enough to reach over and strangle me here.
I may.
And he may anyway, just for kicks. I'm not saying it's an old-fashioned way of looking at things, but it is not the trend right now. And in all the cities we claim we want to look like across just the region, let alone the country, that are forward-looking and taking advantage of opportunities to bring businesses to their cities, that we always say, gee, why weren't we able to do that? It is important that we consider parking as a huge component of that. We have to look at the parking a little differently. We have to be careful we're not over-parking, requirements for over-parking. In any case, this is a small step. I'll climb off my soapbox at that point, but this is a very small step. I think we can move forward and feel fairly confident that the world will not end tomorrow. So.
Before I go to Mr. Quintero, let me close the public hearing.
Well, look, what you stated is a fact in the downtown area, but this isn't downtown. This is a manufacturing area where people are making decent money and companies that are doing quite well. This use is completely different, at least to people working in some of these manufacturing zones, and it's more the manufacturing in this area. I mean, they're going to be spending their money. They'll be, many of them actually live in the southern portion of the city. We have a completely new situation here with people getting there early in the morning, doing their training, and then I assume they leave and either go to school or in jobs and so forth. So that's a reason I'm particularly sensitive on this particular neighborhood and this particular use. It's different in our downtown area where I do agree we don't need to count noses. But here, just like in multifamily neighborhoods, it makes a huge impact on the employees and so forth. So now I have a question. I mean, what exactly, so this would be an open-ended, how would we monitor complaints or, I mean, current employers there and employees that are parking do what? That's one question. How do they go about coming to the city with their, and how do we respond? Then number two, I have another question. In terms of the parking at the transportation center, can someone park there for a fee, or how's that work?
I spoke with Catherine Engel at Traffic, and she actually said that it's public parking for transit users,
Right.
but there are cases where they do sell parking to businesses in the area.
Yeah, because that's another option, that if in fact we start to have problems, perhaps we can sell defined spaces, and especially the early morning. I don't think the afternoon
Yes. And it's-
shift is going to be a problem.
The property's two businesses away, or two buildings away from the transit center.
Mr. Draymond?
Well, yes, but we could do that with existing businesses there, too, that are overflowing onto the street right now. So whether it's this business or existing businesses, again, we come back to what Sheriff Friedman was saying in the beginning of this. Manufacturing jobs, my goodness, I grew up in a family where my father was in, light manufacturing in this city, in an area before we even annexed that area. So I know it inside and out, and I know the dynamics of it. I grew up in that kind of a family, and I grew up in that kind of a family business. But there's nothing, this is not, just so we understand it, this is not by designation a manufacturing zone. If it were, we'd be talking about something else, because this is not a manufacturing business. We'd be talking about whether or not they can open a business there. But we're not discussing that. They can. They have the right to open that business there. So to the extent that we have parking problems, I'm very happy to hear that maybe there is an option here for those manufacturing companies and for this potentially new business. But, I just don't foresee the issue with this limited-use gym being incompatible. Mr. Quintero, pumping iron, bending iron, it's all.
What I've done all my life. That's why I'm challenging Mr. Weaver. We need to start getting a competitive.
All right, do we have a motion? Mr. Howard?
I'm going to note, Madam Chair, members of the agency, that may be an option, that if through complaints that we are able to determine that there is some parking impacts, we can come back to you, the appropriate agency that has jurisdiction over those lots, and look at opening that up. Right now, there are very limited restrictions. There's 72-hour parking for transit users and the like, and there are available spaces, at least from my own knowledge. So that may be an option, that if something should occur in the past where there's some parking pressures, we can come back to you with a report on possibly opening that lot up.
Maybe we can also have some options about helping those businesses encourage their employees to use that public transportation that they're right next to as well. Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll move the item.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Agency members Draymond?
Yes.
Najarian?
Yes.
Quintero?
Yes.
Weaver?
Aye.
Sheriff Friedman?
Yes. And what's next, please?
Any agency member or staff comments?
Mr. Weaver?
Mr. Mulhill said he complimented the previous council that approved the sports complex. I forgot when that was, so I got on my BlackBerry, checked the internet. September of 1997, the judge gave the city the okay to go ahead and build the sports complex. Since I was elected in April, I voted for it. And Mr. Mulhill, I thank you for remembering what I did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Even though you did.
I voted for it,
Good enough. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second.
Okay, we are adjourned.